Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, where tonight we are going to rank the albums from Paul McCartney and Wings. Todd Evans and Stephen Schnee are here tonight, so let's get started.
Talking bands no one talks about. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are doing a ranking. We are going to rank the albums from Wings. That's right, Paul McCartney and Wings. I don't normally do Beatles content on my show because what can be said about the Beatles? But we're doing Wings, so that we can let that in. But I've got Todd Evans here tonight, and I've got Stephen Schnee here tonight, and we had a cancellation. Anthony Ferrara was supposed to be on here. This was actually, wasn't it Anthony's idea, Todd?
It was.
Okay. This is what happens. But I
sorry to be a subpar replacement.
You're not subpar.
No.
You're not. But when I thought, Todd thought, well, who could possibly come in?
I was like, Stephen Schnee could do it.
There he could do it.
I mean, let's put it this way. I'm one of the few people you can say a Wings ranking and have my list together in 3 minutes.
There you go. So we have Schnee here tonight, so it's good. But we're going to have
just the 7 albums, right?
Just the 7.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there's 8.
Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Wildlife,
5, 6.
Red Rose, Speed of Sound, Band on the Run, Venus and Mars. But oh shit, no, there's 7. Why do I have Band on the Run listed twice? Oh, Grant,
Is it so good?
Oh,
I
Grant,
guess that's your number one.
Oh,
he likes
Grant,
it so much he listed it twice.
Such a rookie. So anyway, I want to thank the panel here tonight. We are going to talk some Wings, and we want to hear from you in the comments below. What do you think of Wings? What is your ranking? We do want to hear from you. So anyway, I'm going to start out. Well, I'm going to start off Todd Evans, and then okay. First of all, before we go, shall we go? Schnee, how long do you have before you have to leave?
I can do a whole show.
Okay. Do you want to do?
I think we should do one at a time.
Schnee,
Yeah.
what do you think? Are you good?
Yeah.
Good.
Do like number 7. Each of us do number 7. Then each of us
Yeah.
do number 6.
All right,
I'm not going to go super long.
And I don't have to go super in depth because the thing is with Wings and Paul McCartney, a lot of these people know that. We're not really going to turn on a lot of people to this catalog, but maybe we will. But we are really here just to talk music, and maybe we'll turn you on to it. But I will guarantee you, at least my ranking is going to be very contrarian because the album that I like at number 1 might be surprising. And all these gentlemen, I don't know how they're going to rank them, but it's all about talking music. All right. So Todd Evans, we'll go one at a time. What's your number 7?
Okay. My number 7 is Wildlife.
Okay.
I don't like this album. I wanted to. I tried. I really did try. I really think that it gets off to a weak start. I think Mumbo and Big Bop. Mumbo's okay. Big Bop is just, I just don't have any time for it. I think Wildlife and Some People Never Know are both good, but they're both about 2 minutes too long. And I like Dear Friend, but I kind of feel like this about my number 7 and my number 6 to an extent, that it really, I try to put myself in the place of. Now, when this album came out, is this 71? Does anybody know? What is it?
1971.
71. Okay. So I was alive in 1971, but I try to put myself in the place of somebody who's really excited about getting a solo album or an album from a band that has a Beatle in it in 1971. And I can only imagine that this was probably disappointing. So it's my number 7, and there's a lot of distance between my number 7 and my number 6.
Okay.
I hope that doesn't turn too many people off.
No, but I think the general consensus is that this is probably the weakest McCartney album. I don't know.
Think about something nice to say. The design of this reissue was really cool. I love the cover photograph.
I mean, someone may argue and say that this is probably Paul McCartney's worst work, but
not me.
Oh no, Pipes of Pieces. I mean, Press to Play.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, we're not talking about
like
that stuff, but I'm just saying. All right. I have the box set. I'm just saying, just throwing it out there. All right, cool. So we've got one
That's
for
a whole
Bob.
other show.
That's a whole other show. But in the warehouse, God knows where we're gonna go because it's multifaceted. So anyway, Schnee,
Yeah.
what's your number 7?
Well, my number 7 is completely different than Todd's, and I totally understand. My number 7 is Wildlife. Oh, I'm sorry, it's the same as Todd's. Yeah, but the thing is I don't hate the album. One thing that I really notice about McCartney albums is they are very, very inspired by cannabis. And this one seems to be just
Full of
they were
cannabis.
yeah, they were
I didn't
yeah,
consider that, but that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, and and when you see things like there's video clips of Paul and Linda and the kids just leaning up against a brick wall singing beep bop, beep, and it's like obviously that's you had to
Cannabis.
smoke a bowl before you wrote that one. And this whole album seems to be just him dropping all preconceptions of the Beatles and just saying, I'm going to record whatever comes on my mind, after smoking a bowl. And I think Tomorrow is one of his best solo songs. I think it's a wonderful, beautiful song. But the album as a whole, it's not something I go back to a lot. It's not like, oh man, you gotta hear Mumbo. Oh God, so it's a lost classic because it's not. But Tomorrow is, and Dear Friend is a great song as well. So that's
All
my
right,
number 7.
cool. All right, excellent. Excellent. Oh, my number 7's also Wildlife. And I must say, I do not dislike this record. Back in the day in the 80s, when I heard it as a kid, being a big Beatle fan, big McCartney fan, this is one of those ones you kind of avoided because back in the day, I always bring up the Rolling Stone album guide. They would rate this stuff. This probably got like 2 stars. And I went, ooh, maybe I don't, when you're a kid, do you have a lot of money to really invest into something that's really getting a bad review? No.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of avoided it. But later on, I got it and I go, well, you know what? This really isn't all that bad. I mean, come on. Paul McCartney really cannot put out anything that's bad. Maybe it's not quite up to your standards. I mean, if you're looking at Beatles standards, it's hard to, nothing comes close to that. But maybe there's something in this catalog that does. Um, but think about it. It's just an album. It's cannabis influence. He put Wings together. It's basically an album. Let's just get the band together and just play. If you think about Paul, of course, he just come off a Ram, which is brilliant, even though Rolling Stone brutalized it, which is unfair. That's a whole other story. You would think that this would have been the album that he would have started out with prior to Ram, because it just seems like, let's get the band together. I've got some songs. Maybe they're not all fleshed out, but we can jam. We'll record it. And, it's just a very easygoing record. It's not very serious. People are always looking to Paul for these monumental tracks. They're absolutely brilliant things. This isn't a brilliant thing, but it's fun. I think the best thing on it, I don't mind Bip Bop. Mumbo's all right, but I think Love is Strange. I know it's a cover, but I love it. That reggae influence, I love it. The thing about this record is that the audiophiles love the sound of this record. If you've got
good.
This album sounds phenomenal. It sounds like Paul McCartney and Wings are playing right in your living room when you play it. And so for that, I do like it. Yes, it's weak on material, but these albums have to rank somewhere. So yes, that's my number 7. But still, I wouldn't turn anybody away from it. I would say, go check it out and make your own opinion. Let us know down in the comments what you think.
I thought of a tagline that Apple should have used when the album came out. At least it's better than Sometime in New York City.
Did you see that show I did with Did you see
No,
that?
I saw that you did it. I saw that you did it.
Yeah, I did that with Larry.
I think it's actually better than
It's better
Plastic
than
Ono
that.
Band. I'm not crazy about Plastic Ono Band.
Ooh,
So, and I know
that's
that's
Better than extra
controversial.
controversial,
texture.
but
It's better than extra texture.
it is.
Yeah.
I think Ring of the Fourth is better than extra texture.
Yeah, so do I.
The the Beatles were brilliant in all together, but take them apart, they needed each other.
Yeah.
But that's here or there. All right, so that's our number 7. Number 6, Todd, what you got?
All right. My number 6, I know it seems like I'm just going in order, but I'm really not. My number 6 is Red Rose Speedway.
Okay.
And I I like this record. I really do. I don't like Big Barn Bed, and I think that that's a real that's real an obstacle that I had to get over because it starts everything off. But My Love, I think, is an absolute masterpiece, and I like the rest of the record. I like the medley at the end. I like Little Lamb Dragonfly. I think it's a pretty good record. There are pieces of it that I'm not terror. I don't have a lot of history with this album. So there are bits of it that still kind of make me feel like this is really what you're doing with the record company's money, really. But for the most part, I think you can see him on his path to where he's going. And so this is number 6, but there's a lot of distance between Wildlife and this for me.
All right, cool. All right, Schnee, what you got?
Guess what? Red Rose Speedway, number 6. I really like the album. I do like Big Barn Bed, but that's probably because I'm so used to the version that opened the James Paul McCartney TV show, that the show that they did when they were promoting this album.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, I love it.
that's it's a much more powerful version, and they're just playing in front of a bunch of TV screens or whatever. But My Love gets a lot of flack. My Love, people are just going, oh, it's, just as bad as Billy Joel's Just the Way You Are and stuff, which I think is a brilliant song. I think My Love is brilliant. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. This also has one of my favorite McCartney solo songs called One More Kiss, which he had this tendency to put out these great country-esque songs. And that's one of them. And it's a wonderful song. And I believe should have been a single, or at least should be more acknowledged these days. So Red Rose Speedway is my number 6.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention too that I think that the string arrangement on My Love, I think it's very, very memorable. It's like right up there with Bread's Make It With You. It's just one of those things that it got in my brain when I was a kid, and I'm very fond of it. And I think it's very memorable.
Yeah, I think totally. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So my number 6 is also Red Rose Speedway. Words are hard sometimes. I like Big Barn Bed. My Love is a classic that could have been on a Beatle record, of course. Little Lamb Dragonfly, I don't have a problem with. I think that the original double album version that came out on the Red Rose Speedway box set, which I don't have here, is better. I think when it was a double album, I think it's even better because you've got Country Dreamer on it, which was the B-side of Hell on Wheels. Seaside Woman's on it, which is a good Linda track. I think that would add to it. Some people may differ, but I don't have a problem with Seaside Woman. But there's a
mess on it.
It's got the mess on it. I think it was much better as a double record. Now, I understand maybe Apple, but you would think, why did they trim it down from a double album? I don't know what the story was with that. But,
I do.
What's the story?
They were saving, the vinyl wax because they knew that extra texture was coming. So they needed to save it and press copies of that.
But of course that's it. But anyway, I like the double record. I think I would even rate this album higher had it come out in its original proposed form. But as it is, it's my number 6. I like the record. I think it sounds great too. A lot of these Paul McCartney, and I'm just saying for anybody still in the CDs, that old technology,
Mhm.
If you go on the Steve Hoffman site, a lot of those original Fame CDs that came out back in the 80s of the McCartney catalog got a lot of great reviews, and those records, those CDs sound wonderful. So if you're going to look for it and you just want the original album, just go ahead and look for those. But there you go. I still like this record. It's still not where I'd like it to be. I wish it was higher, but it is what it is. All right, Todd, what's your next one?
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Hopefully we're not gonna get any hate comments.
Yeah.
But my number 5 is Venus and Mars.
Oh, goodness.
And let me explain why. I think that there are moments on this album that are absolutely positively brilliant. And we can where does he put there it is. Uh he puts the track listings in weird places on these reissues. I think that you gave me the answer, and Magneto and Titanium Man and Listen What the Man Said are absolute masterpieces.
Mhm.
I think that they are at Uncle Albert Halsey level. But there are two issues that I have with this song. With this album. The first one is I don't think it sounds very good. I think it sounds really flat, and the various CD masterings of it help, but on vinyl it's a really tough listen. There's not a lot
Mhm.
of definition. Letting Go, I think, is fantastic, but on the record, it just in that last position on side one, it just sounds terrible. Um, and I don't like Rock Show. I know that everyone loves Rock Show. Everyone loves Rock Show, but me. But I don't like those lyrics. I don't like the arrangement. I don't think it's very interesting.
Mhm.
And I think the rest of the I think the rest of the album is much more interesting than that. But
Mhm.
I had to put it, there are a couple that moved up as I reassessed everything. And so I had to move them ahead of this one. But I'm very fond of this record, but I put it at number 5.
Yeah, and I totally get the sound quality thing. If you go on the Steve Hoffman site, Steve Hoffman talks about that record, and I forget what happened. It's like Dolby B instead of Dolby C. I don't know, but there's a reason why
There was a
it's
Dolby mishap.
something happened when they recorded it that there was a mishap. So I can't remember exactly what it was, but do an internet search, you can figure it out. And they can't really correct it. It
It's like
is what it
Chicago
is.
too.
Yeah,
You just can't fix it.
you can't fix
You
it.
can try, but
They tried to
Yeah, see,
fix vapor trails and they
yeah,
did a little bit, but
a little bit.
anyway.
I thought when he's talking about that sort of flat sound, I thought it was very similar to the Lennon albums. I thought that the Lennon albums on vinyl, especially Walls and Bridges, Mind Games, have had that really flat sound that
Yeah.
Well, that's the
it
problem.
just
When I was on
almost sounds
Larry's
like a garbled mess sometimes.
Well, when I
Yeah.
was on Larry's channel the other day and we talked about sometime in New York City, that's part of the problem that I have with those John Lennon records is that Phil Spector production. It drives me up the wall. The slapback drum echo, the slapback on the vocals, it sounds like it's recorded in a toilet. Um, I don't mind it for like the Ronettes and all that,
He's good at what he does,
but I don't
the
like it
thing
with
that he
the
does, but
Beatles or any
everything
Beatle.
else,
Yeah.
not so good.
Yeah.
I don't, and that's part of my problem with John Lennon stuff and the George Harrison. I know All Things Must Pass is brilliant, but you really have to get through that Phil Spector production, even though I don't think that All Things Must Pass is as bad as like Imagine and all that stuff. I can handle it a lot better, but that Phil Spector I have a problem with. May he rest in peace. Anyway, all right, cool. There I've spoken. Schnee, what's your next one?
My number 5 is Wings at the Speed of Sound from 1976. I love a lot of this album. Let Him In, incredible.
Incredible.
Of course, Silly Love Songs, incredible. Wino Junko from Jimmy McCulloch, incredible.
Incredible.
I think She's My Baby is fantastic. I think Beware My Love is incredible. And
But
then that's it. I think everything else is mediocre. I think everything else is whatever. But the high points of this are extremely high. The low points, they aren't extremely low. They're not extra texture. I guess that'll be the theme of this video. You know, they're not Ringo the Fourth level. But yeah, he was letting other people write and sing and stuff. I think the best song on this that he let others do was Wino Junko from Jimmy McCulloch, and I love the sound of his guitar when he plays the guitar solo on that. It's just wonderful. So that is my number 5.
great minds think alike, ladies and gentlemen, because that's also my number 5. And for everything that Schnee said, I totally agree. What really lost me on this record was Cook of the House, which I just cannot stand. I just want to like Seaside Woman I like. Cook of the House, I don't need it. And for the same reasons, he's trying to share the reins with everybody. And no one's at McCartney's level. I mean, think about it. Let him in. Absolutely brilliant. Could you imagine if that would have been on a Beatle album back in the day and you had George Martin and the Beatles all involved in that? And it's great as it is here. I just would have loved that George Martin treatment or the Beatle treatment to some of this stuff, because still Paul was much stronger in the Beatles. And when he could bounce off of John and John could say, you know, oh no, leave that lyric or whatever, they could bounce off each other. They were always much stronger. Paul, though, pretty strong here. His stuff's great. Beware My Love, classic. Silly Love Songs,
absolutely
one of the best bass parts of the 70s. I'm going to say this, the best bass part of the 70s. Classic song. Some people may bitch about it. It is a classic. Some of Paul's best stuff. I don't mind Wino Junko so much. You know, I get Jimmy needs to get his shot. It's not bad. The Note You Never Wrote by Denny Lane, I think's okay, but I think side one's definitely stronger, and you know, everything after Silly Love Songs, I don't know. It's fine, but I'd rather Paul run it. I'd rather Paul be running the show on this. You know,
yeah.
But his stuff is absolutely phenomenal on it. So that's mine. Have nothing more to.
The thing about Wings that a lot of people don't think about or don't understand is Wings would not have had that sound, that vocal blend, you know, the backing vocals and stuff, without Linda. She was an integral part of the
She's
thing.
the secret weapon, I think.
Well, it's not like she was a great singer, but she had a unique tonality that blended well with Paul.
Absolutely. And Denny. See,
and
those
Denny.
three together, it was very, very important. Wings would not have been the same without those three. And you know, I know dynamics changed and chemistry, chemistry changed with,
Right.
different various lineups, but those three were so great together. And a lot of people, I know that you don't like Cook of the House. I'm not particularly fond of it. If you listen to it on Wild Prairie, that Linda McCartney album, if you listen to that in the context of that, it doesn't stand out like the other songs on there, but you understand it more. You know, that's Paul giving her creative reign. I mean, Susie and the White Seaside Woman, incredible. So she had it, but yeah, Cook the House is not top notch Linda McCartney, but yeah, I mean, that's what I sort of want to remind people, is the fact that, you know, Denny, Paul, and Linda those voices work so well together on any of the records.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't argue with that. That's awesome. All right, cool. All right, Todd, back to you.
Well,
what's your next one?
For the sake of continuity, my number 4 is Wings at the Speed of Sound. And it moved ahead of Venus and Mars in the last 3 weeks or so that I've been assessing all these and reevaluating. I went through about 10 years recently, until just a couple of years ago, thinking that this was a terrible album. I only ever thought about the things I didn't like about it. And I really spent some time with it, with headphones and everything in the past a couple of weeks. And my opinion of it really got much higher. And I mean, I had to move it. I had to put it in the position that I did based on Let 'Em In, Beware My Love, and Silly Love Songs, on just on that alone. I think Beware My Love is just outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that some of the songs, the ones on the songs on side two, I mean, yes, it falls apart a little bit after you get past Silly Love Songs. But I like Time to Hide, and I like the last two tracks. And I think it sounds really good. And I think the performances are really good. I think the solos are good. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I put it at number 4.
All right, cool. All right, Schnee, what's your number 4?
Controversial. No, nothing I say is controversial. Band on the Run.
That's pretty controversial. Well, we're
And
talking number 4.
yeah, yeah, number 4. Here's the thing about McCartney albums. You know, I was growing up when these records were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
Yeah.
remember when all this stuff came out. I remember sitting with my brother next to the radio because they said they're going to play the brand new Paul McCartney single, which was 1975. It ended up being Listen to What the Man Said. And you know, I remember, you know, walking up to Licorice Pizza and seeing a sign in the window that says new Paul McCartney album, you know, December 18th or whatever. And you know, whatever month it was. I had a picture of London Town. I remember all these things. I remember buying singles, and so a lot of this is based on it's purely my emotional attachment to these things. So instead of me being the critic, which I try not to be the pretentious critic, you know, like Grant is, I try to be no, I try to approach everything yeah, exactly, at a personal level. And that's why I think Band on the Run was something that I loved when it came out, and I still love today. Remember, now we're talking, do you prefer blondes, brunettes, redheads, whatever? None of it is bad. You know, do you prefer bacon cheeseburger, hamburger, or, you know, whatever? None of it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to put your favorites in order. And I think that Band on the Run, I think I've just heard it too many times. I'm not a big fan of Ammonia or Picasso's Last Words. But it's still a brilliant album. And just a little tidbit that I've shared on other videos. The song 1985 or 1985,
Mm-hmm.
that song was being performed or being jammed in a room by Christopher Cross. And while they jammed it, they came up with their own chord progression, and they wrote Ride Like the Wind when they were jamming 1985 by Paul McCartney and Wings. So that's a little musical tidbit for y'all.
There you
But
go,
that's why
ladies and
Band on the Run.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
You learned something here in the warehouse. It's just not
Yeah.
music talk. We're out here
Um,
to educate you.
Yeah, so Band on the Run, I think, is something that I've heard so many times, and maybe it's a contrarian thing in me. I don't think I'm a contrarian, but it's something that I'm always like, well, why is Sergeant Pepper considered better than Help, or why is Revolver considered better than Rubber Soul? I base everything on my own personal feelings and how it moves me, and that's why Band on the Run, still a wonderful album, but it's going to be number 4 for me.
You know, it's funny you bring up the Beatles because we don't talk about the Beatles on this channel because what can be said. But yeah, really, if you look at Help or Revolver, and then you look at Pepper. Can you really say that those albums are worse than Pepper? I don't think there's anything in the Beatles catalog. Everything's there's nothing better in my book. So to compare them, it's really hard to compare. They were just in different parts of their career at that point. You know what I mean? It's just I think it's all great, you know?
Yeah, I think the only Beatles album that doesn't, reach a certain level is Extra Texture. Oh, I'm sorry. This is George Harrison's solo. Okay, go ahead.
Right,
What's your
right.
number
Gotcha.
4?
All right. Yeah, my number 4. All right. Yes, Todd already mentioned this one. I'm gonna go with Venus and Mars. I think it's a fine record, don't get me wrong, but they have to rank somewhere. And there is a sound quality issue that kind of drives me crazy. If you're anything like an audiophile, you'll kind of listen to it and kind of cringe. But the songs are great. Listen to What the Man Said. I think it's one of Paul's greatest singles.
Yes.
Of course, this could have been a Beatles track. Come on, you know it could have been. Could have been better on the Beatles. Todd doesn't like Rock Show, but I dig Rock Show.
I know I'm all alone on
No,
that.
it's fine.
okay.
I'd like to see Paul rock out. Paul's great when he rocks. He's great. We're going to get to some of that later. Love and Song is a great track as well. You gave me the answer. Right now, this whole album is just hitting it out of the park as far as I'm concerned. Magneto and Titanium Man, is this a throwaway? I don't know. When Paul does a throwaway, it's still top notch. I don't think it's a throwing away. Letting Go is great. You've got the reprise of Venus and Mars. Call Me Back Again. Listen to What the Man Said. What can I say? Treat Her Gently, Lonely Old People is great.
That's so beautiful.
I don't have the archival box set, so I haven't listened to all the extra things. But I do know Solly's on there. I have heard that. Which I always love that track from Wings Over America. Too bad that never got like a real quote unquote release on anything other than the archival box. But I don't.
It's on the 2 CD edition.
Yeah.
Soiley's on the 2 CD edition.
Oh, maybe I do have that. I do have that.
2
I'm
CD
sorry.
and a DVD.
Yeah, I do have it. I'm sorry. Brain problem. I'm still on my cruise. But I think it's a great record. There's really not anything. It's Paul being Paul, Medicine Jar. That's Jimmy, right? Or is that Denny?
Yeah.
It's Jimmy.
No, it's Jimmy.
But Medicine Jar is a great Jimmy track.
Yeah.
Great. I think the
Another
whole
drug
record,
song, Wino Junko.
well, he overdosed,
Medicine
there you
Yep.
go. But I think it's a fine record. I don't have much to add. I like the whole thing. I just wish it sounded better, and I don't think there's any hope for that. So, all right, Todd, we're back to you.
Okay, my number 3. I thought I was going to have this higher than everyone else, and I noticed it hasn't made an appearance yet. But London Town, of course, I have the record because the CD costs $11 billion, and they won't make the McCartney archive collection. I have to say that on,
Well, they haven't made it yet.
Out there into the ether, and maybe Paul will hear it.
I'm sure it's on its way, though.
It is, apparently. But I think this is a beautiful record. I didn't spend very much time with this record until years after it came out. But talking about remembering when things come out, I remember when London Town came out and reaching my hand into that little hole in the 8-track case. Remember the 8-track cases with the plexiglass and you could reach your arm in there and pull one out?
Oh my God.
Looking at this 8-track when it came out. I don't know why I have that memory, but I think this is a beautiful record. I don't think it might be because it's kind of groove packed because it's really long, but I don't think it's one of the better sounding ones. But I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I mean, you look at these songs and you think, oh, there's only one hit on it, but the whole thing is really good. And I think, well, I think with a little luck is like top notch.
Mhm.
But yeah, I really like this record. I think it's adventurous. I think Morse Moose and the Gray Goose is really cool. Um,
Hmm.
I like Girlfriend. Speaking of decent Linda songs, yeah, I like this album a lot. So it's my number three. Number three.
Schnee, what's your number three?
Number three. My number two and number three kept switching, but I'm going to go. Number three is Venus and Mars, another
Okay.
great memory album. Like I mentioned before, just sitting in front of the radio and just listen to what the man said on the radio for the first time, just going, holy crap, this is amazing. And then, but just the album is like solid. I Do Like Rock Show. Love and Song, I think, is a beautiful ballad.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you gave me the answer. Yeah, this whole, I think Letting Go, I don't love it as much as Let Me Roll It. I think it's his kind of,
Well,
I think it's his new Let Me Roll It. But I think it's still a wonderful song. What the heck is that? An alien?
it's my dog, Teddy.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Hi.
my boy.
Call Me Back Again, just a long fade out. And then Treat Her Gently and Lonely Old People, such a beautiful, passionate song. And then the Crossroads theme, which is I think that was a TV series. And it's their version. I think it's wonderful. Now, I can't grade, I've not graded the 2 CD versions or the expanded editions. I haven't
Mhm.
included that. But this one, just adding Junior's Farm and Sally G, makes this even better.
Yep, I agree.
Anyway, that's it. Go ahead.
Awesome. All right, cool. My next one, I'm going to go with Band on the Run. Now, again, this album's been overplayed by everybody. This is, when they thought that this is Paul finally returning to the form of the Beatles, putting out something that's every bit as good as what came before. And you have to admit, it's pretty damn good. Of course, it's my number three. Band on the Run. Oh my God. Talk about a Beatles song. There you go. Jet, Bluebird, Mrs. Vanderbilt, Let Me Roll It. The bass on this is really jacked up in the mix. I love hearing Paul's bass really hot because he's such a great player, for one. All right, let's say this is probably his best record, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
I love it. It sounds great. The playing's great. And it's funny that the band was in a crisis. Everybody quit. Henry McCullough quit. Everybody quit. It just was Denny, Paul, and Linda. But somehow it worked. And Paul's drumming, I think, is great. And on the North American release, they put Helen Wheels on it. And I think, even though that's really not part of the record, I think it makes the record even stronger. I always like to hear Helen Wheels on it because, when you're trained from hearing the original album pressing back in the 70s, in the US, you're just trained to hear that. So, but anyway, I think it's great. I love it. But still, it's my number three. I don't return to this record very often, probably because it's just in my DNA and I've heard it so much. That's probably it, but it is what it is. But my number three, it could be higher. Probably on a lot of other people's rankings, it would be number one, but this is, we're doing our personal preferences. So there you go. Okay, Todd Evans.
All right. Well, I thought that this record was going to be my number one, but it got upset. And I'm talking about my number two, Band on the Run. I recently got that. I should have pulled it out. The half-speed remastered Miles Show All, whatever that is. That the right name? Do I have the right name? The remastered half-speed vinyl of it, and they do put Helen Wheels on that.
Oh, good. Awesome.
Very cool.
Super.
But I love everything about the packaging of this record. I love the album cover. I think it's iconic. I love the colors. I love the font. I love that there's random people in there, so that I every time I pick up this album, I think, what's James Coburn doing on there? I mean, I just think that it's so.
James
and
Coburn,
when you read about the making of this album, it's almost as if they tried to make it as hard on themselves as they possibly could by recording in different places and different countries. But I think that it's just, I'm not going to go on and on about all the tracks, but I think that that Jet is just unreal. I think Bluebird is beautiful. And let me roll all of that. The thing that that moved it to number 2 for me was 1900 Picasso's Last Words. I really don't care for that song. But I really love 1985. So I really struggled with whether or not this was number 1 or not, but I put it at number 2.
Awesome. All right. That's fair. All right, Schnee, what you got?
My number 2 is Stephen Eady, The Ultimate Collection. Oh, sorry. Wrong pile.
Oh, shit.
My number 2 is London Town. I love this album so much. So many memories associated with it. The guitar solo in the song London Town is amazing. I don't know if anybody pays attention to that, but it's got a melody that's unlike any other, like any of the vocal melodies on that song. And it's incredible. Cafe on the Left Bank, I'm Caring, Backwards Traveler's fun. I've Had Enough as a rocker, With a Little Luck is incredible. Just so many. And then the Morse Moose and the Grey Goose, that kind of, again, a lot of his albums were really, really, really impacted by the use of cannabis. But that's just speculation. But it's a one, and it's a very warm record too. It's not a rockin' record, but it's a very warm,
folky
record,
kind of folky.
Yeah, and can only be made. But I mean, I know it has. I think there's a couple songs that have like Jimmy and Joe English on it and stuff. But generally speaking, I believe it's an album that can only have been made by those three. And of course, Denny, Linda, and Paul. And of course, I think that Girl School or Moleskine Tire would have made this album even better, but that's why you have bonus tracks on CDs. So
I totally agree. I'm a big fan of Moleskine Tire. I know this, when that single came out when I was a kid, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I know it rubs a lot of fans the wrong way. I don't personally hear that. I think it's a wonderful single, and I do think that it would have made the record stronger if it was on it. But, not everything can fit on there in the era of vinyl. And Todd, you love it.
Yeah, I love it. I love Moleskine Tire,
it.
and it gives you an excuse to buy Wings Greatest.
Exactly.
Well, remember, here in the U.S., Moleskine Tire was the B-side. The A-side was Girl School. When the single first came out, the because that's the song you heard on the radio all the time, because America or Capitol and U.S. radio didn't think that Moleskine Tire was worthy of a hit, and it ended up being the biggest single in the UK since She Loves You. I think it actually outsold She Loves You. As like, it was huge. It was massive. And I think that's why people give it crap. Here in the US, I don't think people do, only because, it didn't get as much attention here.
So my number 2 is Wings, London Town, 1978. And I really don't have much to add than what Mr. Schnee said, but London Town's perfect. Cafe on the Left Bank, I'm Carrying. Backwards Traveler, the whole side 1 kicks it out of the park. With a Little Luck, open side 2. The sequencing on this record is great. Famous Groupies is a great track. Deliver Your Children. People kind of get on this record for being too folky or too mellow. They wanted Paul to rock out. That was the criticism. But for God's sakes, ladies and gentlemen, this is such a great record with good songwriting. It's at my number 2, but my number 1 and number 2 could change. They could flip. I think Wings got better as time goes on. And by the time that they ended Wings, I really wish they would have kept going. But we can't rewrite history or anything, but there's that. So that's my number 2. All right, Todd.
Weed inspired Wings and Weed tore them apart.
Yeah.
There you go. Could be. All right, Todd, what's your number 1?
Okay, I know everybody who can do math has already figured this out, but My number one is Back to the Egg. Let's face it. This is a fantastic album. Um, and I'm sorry I don't have a Columbia shirt to change into at this moment, but but reception, the way it starts, is fantastic. Getting Closer is just kicks ass. I absolutely love Getting Closer.
Mhm.
We're Open Tonight is great. Spin It On is fantastic. Denny's song Again and Again and Again is good. Old Siam Sir is just a masterpiece. And that's one of those songs that you don't think about very much until you play the album and then you go, oh yeah, this part. Um,
Mhm.
and I absolutely think that Arrow Through Me, if you were to take all of his songs that kind of had kind of a mellow vibe and have a a horn arrangement, like if you think about a Little Luck and Let Him In and stuff like that, Arrow Through Me should have been the next one. It should have been the next really, and I know it was a single, I know it did
It was a
okay, but
single.
it should have been the next one. It should have been a big, big, big song, like a number one song. I don't know
Yeah.
why
Oh,
it
yeah. I
wasn't.
agree. I agree.
Um, the thing that knocks this album down, and of course it didn't knock it down too far because I picked it as number one, but I'm not crazy about Rockestra theme. I think it's a fun idea, but I don't think it works very well. But I'm glad that they only did it on two tracks. So so
Mhm.
it's not enough to knock it down. To You, I'm not crazy about, but After the Ball, Million Miles, and Winter Rose, Love Awake, I'm going to tell you, I'm a big fan of the two-part McCartney song. I really love that idea. I love that he feels like he can take two songs that aren't quite fleshed out enough to make their own song and marry them together. I just think that's genius. It's one of the reasons why I like Press to Play better more than a lot of people because it has a couple of those on there, and I was happy to see that. But the best track on this album is The Broadcast. And I don't know why, but it just touches me, that song. It's just random things read out of two different books by people who are just happen to be around. But there's something about the way that those spoken word things are scored with that string arrangement that is absolute McCartney magic. And I think it's brilliant. And but when you read about how this album was made, it was just a mess. I mean, they started it and stopped it and started it and stopped it, and thought they didn't have enough and cut things out of it and added things and then took them out again and then added them back. I mean, it's amazing that it turned out as good as it did. It's fascinating to me that Baby's Request was supposed to be done with the Mills Brothers, and then apparently they took them off because I guess they wanted too much money. They tried to renegotiate or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I remember reading something about that. But I just love this album.
Mhm.
I think Steve Holley and Lawrence Juber are great, and I think they made a really good Wings for a very short time. And I love the cover. I love everything about it. It's a 10 out of 10 album for me.
10 out of 10. All right, cool. Mr. Schnee.
Todd, I think you're crazy for picking that as your number one because I think the number one album is Back to the Egg by Wings. It's incredible. I mean, I love okay, it's produced by Chris Thomas, which adds a power to it. You know that obviously he had with Pretenders and stuff like that. But those little medleys kind of harkens back. Now McCartney did that obviously with Abbey Road, and then he did it with Uncle Albert Admiral Halsey. Took three completely different ideas, and he did that with The Mess, I believe. That
Mhm.
had a couple different songs in it, and he did it throughout his career. But it's just so funny how I think that it worked really well on here. And Chris Thomas did the same thing with Badfinger on the Wish You Were Here album, which is my favorite album of all
Oh,
time.
yeah.
And this is going to be right up there in my top 20 favorite albums of all time too. There's a power here. There's an energy. I'm not a big fan of Spin It On, but it's still a fun song. Not particularly a big fan of The Broadcast, but like I said, it's just like saying fries or onion rings, red or green, just whatever you feel like at that, exact moment. And it's just a powerful record that I think people are now beginning to realize that, yeah, this album is the shit as opposed to shit, and it's just a really wonderful album.
Yeah, I totally agree. I liked Chris Thomas's work. Pretenders, what he did with the Sex
Mhm.
Pistols.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a record that I dislike from Chris Thomas. I think he's a gem. I think he was the perfect producer, co-engineer, whatever your co-producer, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Collaborator for this record. I think his work here it speaks for itself because this is also my number one. And I had no idea we would all choose the same record. But this is the record that I still come back to most often, which is
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. I think it probably is that it's the perfect blend between the rockers and
Mm-hmm.
the mellow things. And if you look at it on paper, and we've done a sequencing show before, you look at this on paper and you wouldn't think it works. But for some
Yeah.
reason, it works. You can have,
Mm-hmm.
Getting closer, we're open tonight, which is great, and then go right into Spin It On, and you expect Spin It On to come on. Old Siam, sir, great rockers. I remember back on FM rock radio when this came out, they played Spin It On and Old Siam, sir, all the time. And that's probably where I really got hooked because they would play them nonstop. You guys mentioned the Rockester. God, I can't talk. Well, we're under a tornado.
Orchestra theme.
Rockester theme. I dig that too. I love the footage I love it. I think it works well. You know what? Might as well throw it on here. I think it's beautiful and so glad to see you here. I think also works well. Songwriting here is great. Production's great. Like I mentioned, Denny's track again and again and again fits right in. I think it's a beautiful track. Daytime, Nighttime Suffering would have been nice to have this part of the original record. One of the greatest Paul McCartney tracks ever. Wonderful Christmas Time. People like to badmouth that Christmas song, but I love it.
Love it.
Todd,
Oh my.
Christmas Time?
Oh, I love it.
Okay, well, we're
Yeah.
all on the same.
I am a total wonderful Christmas time apologist.
And, Good
Yeah.
Night Tonight would have been great to have it on there too, but, due to restraints.
Well, if we ever get one of these, maybe someday,
It'll come.
Paul, if you're listening, or MPL or whoever I got to nag to make it happen.
But, my lineup could change, but I doubt it. This has been my number one for a long time. So I loved it then and I still love it today. So,
Well, the thing about this record is I've said it a couple times that Arrow Through Me, right? Which is, oh my, just an absolute fabulous song.
yeah.
It seems like that would have fit more on London Town than on this album.
Mm-hmm.
So if you took off I've Had Enough off of London Town and put Arrow Through Me on that, it would fit, and I've Had Enough would fit on Back to the Egg.
And you could have put Girls School on here too, and it probably would have fit better.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
With those rockers.
Yeah, I think that this album, it's everything I love about Paul McCartney. There's the beauty in the music. There's the energy. There's still that need to explore and to move forward. He's just not sitting on his laurels. And I think that the reason this probably didn't do as well is just because people just want the same old, same old. Even though if he had come out with an album that sounded just like Venus and Mars, or just like Band on the Run, or just like Speed of Sound, people would have said, he's not changing. But then he puts out an album that shows he's willing to strip everything down and start all over again. Then they're going to go, it doesn't sound like the other albums.
Mhm.
You know, every artist has to deal with that. People want them to stay the same, but when they stay the same, people say that they're, that they don't change.
But this album makes me
Awkward silence.
no, I'm just saying this album it kind of makes me sad because I wish there were more Wings albums.
Yeah.
I liked what they all did together. I missed Denny Lane on the albums afterwards. I think there was magic with Denny and the band. And I think
Yeah.
there's just that combination, that chemistry that we miss later on. That's all.
McCartney had 3 great collaborators, in my opinion, people that pushed him artistically: John Lennon, Elvis Costello, and Denny Lane. And I know that people don't think that people probably just think that Denny was a yes man, but look at what McCartney did after Denny Lane was no longer involved in the process. I'm not saying that Tug of War or Pipes of Peace, Pipes of Peace kind of sucks. I'm not saying that any of that's bad, but I mean, just if Wings had stayed together, we probably never would have heard Say, 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 which is extra texture is better than that.
You're losing me a little bit, Stephen.
You like Say, Say, Say?
Well, I like Pipes of Peace. I think Pipes of Peace is a masterpiece. And I understand that that's not popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got it here.
No, that's fine. And that's fine. I totally dig that people love it, because remember, my shelves are filled with things that Todd would probably go like, you have that? You have all the Bucks Fizz albums with bonus tracks?
All right. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Back to the Egg is our number 1. Who knew? Anyway, I want to thank Stephen Schnee and Todd Evans for joining in. And there you go. I do want to give an extra thanks to Mr. Schnee for filling in for tonight. Couldn't have done it without you. Glad you could make it. It's always fun to talk music with Stephen Schnee.
It's a pleasure. I love talking music with you, and I look forward to the next time.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Let us know down below what you think about your top 10 Wings albums or tracks. I don't care. We're just here talking music. Let us know. I'm sure
7.
There's only 7. 10. Well, you know what I mean. Your top 7. Let us know below.
Unless, of course, you count Stevie E, The Ultimate Collection.
Or Loverboy 6.
I do have that.
I forgot all about that.
There's going to be a Loverboy show coming up, so I'm prepping. Mark Allman, or your Mark Allman album. But anyway, all right.
Or Flock of Seagulls, Story of a Young Heart.
Oh, flip that. Is that the cherry red one?
It is.
Do you have the album after that?
No, I used to have the cherry red version. I just have the Almacantar version.
That's expensive. Have you seen how much that is?
Of that 4th one.
It's not worth it.
I don't care. I want it for my collection, but still, was that only in print for like maybe a minute and then they pulled it? I don't know.
I don't. I'm surprised they haven't repressed it, since it goes for so much money. But nobody wants that album. I mean, I have the album. I mean, if I stumble across it and I can get it for $20, that's fine. I'm not paying $100 for that.
I know. I just missed it when it came out. I would have bought it.
Yeah.
For $15. But now it's just crazy. I'll just keep the vinyl version of it. I'm fine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there we went on another tangent, talking Flock of Seagulls. Stay tuned for next week when we rank the Flock of Seagulls albums. All right, we'll see you.
And we'll talk about Paul McCartney.
And then we'll bring up Paul McCartney. All right, everybody. We'll see you. Thanks, gentlemen.
Extra texture forever, folks.
There you go.